It's the old Doctor Who show, episode number 142. Planet of the Daleks, a place of our very own.
Go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.
You couldn't control my mind before, and you certainly can't control it now.
Would you like a jelly, Debbie?
The TARDIS, when working properly, is capable of many amazing things.
Reverse the polarity of the neutron flows, and the TARDIS will be free of the force field.
Well, the TARDIS is more than a machine. It's unity, but a person, you see.
Resulting reaction, described.
Welcome back to the old Doctor Who show,
your Doctor Who
tri-weekly
show, your classic Doctor Who tri-weekly podcast show that we have been doing since 2015. It is now 2023. We are in year number 8. I believe I had been referring to this as doing this for 7 years, but if my math checks out,
we added some stories.
We're starting our 8th year, correct?
We have finished 7 whole years of this.
Yes, so 15 to 23, that's 8 years. That's 2 presidential cycles if we were to run for office. That's a long time, Dan. That's a long time.
You're right. We're term limited out.
I believe we're the oldest running Doctor Who podcast
ever in the history of the.
Yes.
I would go so far as to say
reviews are in, and it's us. No, I don't know if that's true.
It is the oldest running.
But let it be true.
Doctor Who related media of any sort, including the show. This podcast is older than the Doctor Who show. I mean, few people know that.
But it's older than the Doctor Who show. Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
This has been running forever. Hey, this is the end.
Oh no!
Dun-dun-dun. Beautiful. I've been trying for 8 years, holding on to my seamless, flawless Jim Morrison impression.
Oh yeah,
and now it's time to bust it out.
Right? He was a poet. Dan, how are you? Dan, what have you been doing? Dan, there's a whole bunch of stuff I have to say. But let's start with the stuff that you have to say.
Yeah, let's start with the very few things I have to say, and we'll get on to your adventures around the country. We are a week late with this review.
Yeah, we are a week late.
Because we both had things happening.
You were away. I had been away a little bit too, and
it just didn't work out.
Why don't you tell us about your awayness?
I was on the continent of Europa.
Mm-hmm.
We went to Barcelona, or because I was there for a few nights, now I can say Barcelona.
Oh my god!
Which was great. I only eat tapas now, and I smoke incessantly because I've absorbed the culture.
Not much has changed. That's how I remember you.
So we did that, then we went skiing, and it was awesome. We were gone for almost 2 weeks, and now we're back, baby. But we thought that maybe trying to do a transcontinental review across time zones may have been a little too ambitious for us.
Yeah,
so that's why we waited a week.
I mean, because I had to...
What did you do?
Trying to record on like a Monday or Tuesday. I was in transit. I myself was traveling that Monday and Tuesday, and Sunday would have been a nightmare for me anyway because I was so full of nerves.
From what?
Well, did I say it on here already that I was
might have, but I don't listen.
400 sixth graders in Punta Gorda, Florida. For anyone following along on their map, Will Perkins and I, the artist, and I am the author of the middle grade fantasy adventure graphic novel Goblin,
Middle Age.
Available now wherever fine books are sold in the U.S. and abroad. We were invited and flown down to speak at a library.
How was Elon's private jet?
Charlotte Library. Then we were invited to speak to the 400 very rowdy at first 6th graders, super kind, and then run a workshop and then fly back. What was your question then? You said how was the flight? Terrible.
Yeah, I mean you got flown down. How was Elon's private jet, buddy?
I don't like to fly for a lot of reasons. I believe on this very podcast, someone in my family had died, or for some reason I was flying down and going to a funeral of some kind and flying back, and somebody like put their seat back into my knees and then tried to fight me on the plane.
Right.
I believe that was very early in the Doctor Who review cycle. Of course, it happened again. The fight part didn't happen, but it's like anywhere I go on a plane, because I'm not like one of those, what is it called? I'm poor. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. So I'm always in the, under the plane with the luggage. And every seat, up. The one in front of me, back, bam, into the knees. Happens every time. And it was not fun. Not fun. And the planes were delayed. And everyone's just awful, and it's just like, and you're just looking around, and you're like, you know what? If the fungus virus comes, the Last of Us style fungus virus, you know what? Take them all out. We're not.
Welcome back to the old airline travel review show.
Oh, the worst. Just delays upon delays, terrible. And like when we landed, there was these people behind us that were international flyers. They needed to make a connecting flight, so they kept telling us, hey, when we land, let the people go. Let the people go. Don't get up and take. Nope. People just taking their time, pulling their bags out of the overhead bin. And you're like, does no one have any empathy?
What's the answer?
The answer was no, they didn't.
They don't.
Yeah, so it's fine. The whole thing was fine. The kids were great. I'll tell you a little story about the kids. So my favorite part of the whole thing was not the speaking. The speaking was very nerve-wracking. It was fine. They were totally cool. But there's so much nerves. My body was like literally shutting down before I had to go. I have a lot of trouble processing stress, but then it always goes well, and then I'm glad I did it, and everyone's like, what are you so worried about? It went fine. But the workshop was the best because there were these two girls. Everybody was great. But there was these two girls that cracked me up, and this one girl was asking me all these questions, like, how do I write a comic? Do I open with a long shot? Blah, 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 all this stuff. And she's like, they had all prepared like a comic before, and I was like, oh, what was your comic about? She was like, oh, it was about a dog walker. I was like, oh, that's cute, and she's like, but we're thinking of changing it. And I was like, oh, what are you going to change it to? And she just looked at me, and she goes, war. And I was like, all right. We went from a dog walker to war. And you know what? Their new idea was fantastic. It was great.
Strong pivot.
So I get it. Here's the other thing. Any listeners out there that are teachers, you are amazing. Because I don't know how people teach. I spoke out loud probably 3 hours, right? So it was like an hour in the library, and then it was like 40 minutes in front of all those kids, and then it was another hour, give or take, in the workshop. I am wiped out. I don't know how a teacher shows up at like 9 o'clock in the morning and then talks all day until 3.
They're showing up at 6:30.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, whatever time they're. But as far as like being on, like being on from that block, I don't know how they do it because I was so wiped out. And like I'm an introvert anyway, so it's like all of the energy I was just this husk. By the time I got home, it was just like I just needed to be plugged in like an electric car of some kind. That's all.
It sounds like it was great,
a fine
though.
trip. I'm glad to be back. We forgot to tell people that we weren't doing it. And when I say we, I mean you, Dan, because we were like, Dan, tell everyone that we're not doing the show. And you know what? I don't think anyone noticed.
Nope, it's cool. It's cool. You know what, folks? We're getting really loosey-goosey as we come to the end here.
We're at the end. This is the last proper review of a Doctor Who story because I think we ran out, right? And I'd asked multiple times for listeners to let us know if there was another story that we could do. Was there another story we were supposed to do? Can't remember.
I don't know what the word supposed to means in a sentence, but...
is there another story? Your last chance to let us know if there's another Doctor Who story
that has all parts. All parts are available on BritBox. No telesnaps, whatever. It has to be a full thing.
Like no cave paintings or anything.
It can't be 12 parts. That's because that's not going to happen.
Yeah. So what do we do, Dan? We're at the end. We have our big show. After today, we're going to have a live show where we're going to do it on YouTube, or I don't know what we're doing yet. We haven't figured out. We should have known. We should know to tell people
before we even start speaking. We should have talked about this, but we didn't. We're going to do it live.
About it right now. I think we've done it on...
We've done Twitter.
I don't want to do it on Twitter.
I kind of like Twitter Spaces because it works really well.
Does it work anymore?
Oh, that's a good question. Who knows?
Things just don't work.
Used to.
So what about... Does YouTube let people...
It does.
What about like Twitch? Does that let you
I've never set it up before, and I don't think we're just going to have the number of people. Instagram Live we tried doing before, and that was pretty fun.
Let's do YouTube and just say we'll do YouTube.
It's such a pain in the ass.
We did YouTube. We know there's comments that people can say, and then we can read their feedback.
True.
And I don't know if you can invite someone in on YouTube or not.
I don't think we can.
So let's just say you'll just, if you have questions, you can literally type them in. We'll do it live if we have like 3 people on, great. If we have 150 people on, better. We'll do it.
Tell your friends.
You'll see our faces, and then I guess we'll decide if there's a future beyond the rainbow. Is there a Where's My Robot style podcast after? Is really the end? When are we going to talk about Last of Us? I don't like. There's on the plane I watched. Speaking of Pedro Pascal.
Mm-hmm.
Were we? What's the Nicolas Cage Pedro Pascal movie that I watched on the plane about the unbearable weight of massive talent? It was fantastic. That movie was like made for me. And granted, I was in a sort of a fugue state on the plane, but it was wonderful. Highly recommend it. You know what I'm talking about?
I do. I haven't seen it.
It's so good.
I have less patience for Nick Cage than perhaps most people do, so I wouldn't be the first in line for that.
It's very, it's a meta type movie. He's Nick Cage in the movie,
right?
But how do you not like Nick Cage? I don't know. That's a whole other thing. I guess that would be.
I didn't say I didn't like him. I just said
point counterpoint with Dan and Eric. There's another idea, some kind of crossfire style.
Ooh, we both wear bow ties, though.
Yes, we both wear bow ties and talk about Nick Cage versus not. How do you not like Nick Cage, man? I mean, come on.
I do have an idea for a follow-up podcast, Eric, but we're not going to talk about it here. We're just going to tease people about it on this whole thing here. But anyway, yeah.
Anyway, that's all. I think that's all I have. Do we miss anything else?
No, I think we should.
We want to hear from you. So again, keep those letters coming. Any feedback that you want before we implode and the show ends in the double suicide. Are we still doing that? Is that still the plan? Because I have messed my life up. I told everyone off. I burned all the bridges. All right.
We're going to start over.
Of course, metaphorically.
Of course.
To point that out. Should we talk about Planet of the Daleks?
I mean, it seems like we're both here. We both watched it.
We could talk about Planet of the Daleks and the spiders. Planet of the Spiders and the Daleks right next to each other. I guess we'll hit that button and we'll... We're not missing anything. Are we missing something? Are we missing something, Dan?
Wow. No, I'm sorry. I'm just sitting here doing my Seth Meyers impression of Owen Wilson.
Okay.
Wow.
All right.
It's a double... Okay, let's hit that button.
I don't know what just happened, but let's hit the button.
Take charge of all controls. Report on invisibility experiments. Daleks can now achieve total invisibility for periods in excess of 2 work cycles. Satisfactory. The Supreme Council has ordered our army to be activated immediately. The invasion of all solar planets is to begin today.
It's Planet of the Daleks. Mm-hmm. So, what happened to this one, Eric? Picking up with the last moments of the previous story, that was Frontier in Space.
Yes.
Joe helps the wounded doctor into the TARDIS, just in time before he collapses into a well-timed and well-deserved coma. The man needed a little break. Before he does, he sends a message to the Time Lords through the telepathic circuits that sometimes appear in stories and sometimes they're not.
There,
but whatever.
Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they rhyme slow, sometimes they rhyme quick. You don't know.
Shoot, spitting fat rhymes. So he does that and lets the Time Lords know about a possible Dalek invasion force. The TARDIS lands in a very animated jungle. It's full of spitting plants, invisible creatures, creeping fungi, furries.
Yeah.
And our favorite underutilized baddies, the Daleks. They just don't get enough.
You don't get a lot of those.
They don't get a screen time. I don't even think most people know about them. And that's deep cut for the real Doctor Who fans, the Daleks. And they appeared in a twist that no one could see coming. given the title of the story. The Doctor and Joe help a suicide squad, not that one, of Thals to turn back the Daleks' plan and to save the galaxy, at least until the defrost cycle on the planet finishes. So, Eric, this is story number 68 from 1973. It was written by Terry Royalties Nation.
Yes.
Directed by David No Baloney Maloney, and produced by a newcomer, Barry Letts, giving it a shot for his first time. Oh, wait, no, he's been doing this for seasons and seasons. So, Eric, what did you think about this?
What I think?
Pertwee story.
What did I think?
I want to know what you thought.
Oh my God, Dan's actually asked me what I think for once.
For once.
I really enjoyed it.
Oh.
I actually very much enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I wish that Daleks weren't in the title, because it would have been cool to see the you go through all this effort of having the invisibility reveal at the end of episode 1, but it's a Dalek anyway because it's the freaking title.
Yeah.
But I actually liked it. I thought, I don't know. I mean, it was 6 parts, so it didn't have to be 6 parts. And it didn't. It didn't have to be 6 parts, but I actually enjoyed it, and I really liked Joe. I thought Pertwee was great. The Thals were interesting. The enemy design grimace stuff we'll get to. Not my favorite.
No.
The Daleks are, could it have been another enemy? Sure. But I thought it was cool. I liked all the MacGyver stuff with the Doctor making his own hot air balloon at one point. And I don't know. It was good. I was happy to be watching Doctor Who as it was going, and I feel like, I don't know, it was cool. I don't know, have much more than that. I could talk about specific stuff.
We will do that.
That we'll get to, and kind of weird. The one Joe note that I had, it was it's kind of strange. They always forcing a relationship.
Let's get to that.
We get to that, and then knowing what happens in the Green Death, it just felt weird. But yes, what did you think of this, Dan?
Eric, I also enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I didn't love it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. It wasn't the best, but yes, it was totally enjoyable.
Yeah. I know we already said it, but 6 parts just means that there's extended sequences, 30 seconds solid of just someone walking through a jungle. I don't. You just
the very uncomfortable spitting plants. That whole thing was was a very weird opening. A lot of it was very strange, but yes, keep going.
Yeah. So,
you froze.
But no, I like that.
All of a sudden I brought up the spitting plants, and Dan's eyes just glazed over.
Yeah. Little technical difficulty on the internet. I think starting off with picking up literally with the final scene of the previous story, carrying it into this one, it's still Daleks again. It does feel like more of a bigger arc happening here. We get to have Jo on her own, kind of taking care of the Doctor at the very beginning. I think it was a fun little device that she has to speak into the dictaphone to kind of tell the audience what's going on, basically. But kind of giving that recording of what's happening, and she just decides heck, we landed here, and even though the view screen just got covered in goo, I might as well just go out into the jungle on my own and see what happens. So intrepid Jo just feeling herself, feeling confident that she can handle this, goes out and starts to explore. It was a very good Jo episode. I think she's fantastic. When I say that, it was a great Katie Manning episode. I think, you had alluded to, some of the things they do with Jo sometimes are a little off-putting. A little bit of the damsel in distress stuff happening, but that was counterbalanced by her having a lot of
and especially
agency.
At the end, it's that double flank.
Yeah,
she's
she
with that other
volunteers
guy, so
to go. Yeah. It is almost a little bit of two minds about how they treat Jo, but I think Katie Manning obviously really imbues that character with so much energy and sympathy, and there were just certain moments, just speaking of the weird gender politics of this, I was reading about the casting of this, and they have the second crew of Thals that show up, and the producers were insistent that they have a female Thal for visual variety and for the girls in the audience to empathize with, because people can't whatever. Anyway, they haven't been doing that forever because there have been no women on the screen. So they threw in one female to as a bone, as a sop to the women, but then they used her as like, oh, I can't make decisions because you're here and I love you,
you're
and it's
ruining
your fault.
Yeah, it's like this guy's
if I make a mistake, it's your fault for being a woman. So it was really kind of maybe not the best idea there, but anyway, yeah, we can just go through this. Let's try something.
Go through it.
Like we always do. So anyway,
yeah, we
the
can
doctor.
go through it.
I like that the doctor is put into bed. Well, you got the pull out kind of bed coming out of the
and he's
side
running
of the
cold, right? He's
room.
getting little ice crystals on his head. And you mentioned too, like how it continues from the previous story, and we don't get that a ton.
No.
So when we
never.
do, it feels like it's a bigger thing that's happening. And I know we just did it too. Like we just reviewed it, and I was trying to remember. I remember the Master is the one that shoots him, and
but there's the Ogrons.
Didn't we saw a hint of the Daleks or something?
They were
towards
not
the end.
They were the ones kind of controlling the Ogrons, but the Ogrons for the majority of the stories were the baddie with the
So
Master.
I guess like where we talk about the invisibility and keeping it from the title, I guess you would have known anyway that.
Well, not necessarily. They flew to another planet,
I guess,
so it wasn't
fair
really.
enough.
They didn't have to do that.
I wish
that
the whole thing with the telepathic bit talking to Gallifrey, right? And then the Time Lords are smart enough to like move him, take control of the TARDIS and land them there. Like you deal with it, but they're not smart enough to know that he's like almost regenerating because he's in some kind of space coma.
Well, I don't know what the exact message was.
Space math, by the way. Somebody at some point... No, space medicine.
Space medicine. Yeah, I wrote that down, too. He's fully qualified in space medicine.
The way that they use the, the Time Lords on Gallifrey to, like... They're constantly in control, but they're never sending help or, like... Even, like, him communicating with them, it didn't do anything.
No, they just took control of the TARDIS and sent them there without any sort of preparation, without any sort of help at all.
It was a little odd, but go on. So
okay, so we're still in the very first scenes here, but like just the fact that a bed pulls out in the console room, we've never seen that before, which is kind of fun.
It does not look comfortable.
No, not
does
not
not
at all.
look comfortable. It looks like a slab you put a corpse on.
Well, at that point he was almost rigid from the frost, but. Speaking of discomfort, we don't know how long he's laying there, but it's enough time for Joe to go change and whatever. Yeah. He's just laying there in his full frilly outfit. Just not that I expect him to be like, in pajamas or something, but he's just like in full, like shoes on, thrown into the bed, doctor recovering there. I don't know if Pertwee was pulling a face, but when there's the ice crystals across his face and his eyes are really wide, he just looks really goofy, like he's about to stick his tongue out at Joe or something. I can't imagine that she was able to keep a straight face through the entire filming of that because it just looked really silly.
There's a ton of like silly, weird things in here, and I like the aggressive plants that we meet immediately when she goes out with the
and they were
spraying whatever. But it was also completely silly.
They're totally silly, and we don't know what planet we've landed on. We don't know the connection exactly to the Daleks, but when you first see those plants, they kind of swivel like a Dalek head on a stalk.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this must be some planet that kind of like fed into the design of the actual Dalek pepper pots that they ride around in. No, it has nothing to do with that. It's probably just really convenient for them for building props quickly. But it's just like, that's super weird that the planet they're on has no real connection to the Dalek lore or anything.
No, and I don't even remember why they're on. Oh, they're on there because just the invisibility ability, right? Of the
So,
but I like the aggressive nature of the plants, but also the concept that this fungus sort of hardens around, like how the TARDIS gets sort of encased in it, and even like the Last of Us, you're gonna get completely taken over by this fungus stuff.
Yeah,
I thought was interesting, but when the doctor comes to, so Joe's wandering around, the door is sort of blocked by the fungus that's grown and all the growth.
Yeah.
All that makes sense. But it's like they spend so much time on the oxygen, so you see like like you could have just said the TARDIS is running out of oxygen and that was enough. But then they take the backup oxygen, which has 4 canisters. So you have to spend all this time or 3. You're right, 3 canisters. This one, okay, this one's out. Oh, this one's out. Oh, we got a little bit more of this one. It's like they're spending all this effort and time. I don't know. It felt like they could just say, oh, and the reserves are almost you didn't need to spend.
You didn't need
to wheel the thing out, and it looked like nitrous. So I guess maybe it was.
Yeah,
maybe
it was just party tanks.
They were just
Those are the party
partying
tanks
on that thing.
I totally agree. Again, it's one of those. Hey, should I tell you guys? I thought this probably could have been 5.
Yeah, you could edit. You could cut a little here.
You
can
and edit some things out, right? Edit it down instead of padding it up. But anyway,
I like the spacecraft though. Like when you're on the planet, you don't know where you are. And then they get to that spacecraft, and then you do the reveal of the dead pilot. Like that kind of stuff, I thought was cool. And
I did too.
I like their the costume design
Puffer
of
jackets?
the Thals. It felt very much like 70s sci-fi.
Yeah, it was very perfect for that era. Yeah. It was weird though. That pilot just sitting there in the chair because they mentioned that he died on impact.
They didn't bother burying him.
No, they didn't bother. They left him there just to, hey, you hold down the fort while we go.
and the thing is, they're still revisiting the ship. It's not like they left the ship. Like they come back there often enough that they find Joe.
They're there long enough to know the situation of what's going on entirely.
What about the months in between when the smell was bad? Like were they just still going in there?
Oh, that's the captain. He always kind of smelled bad, but this
the old blonde-haired humanoids.
Yeah. So
we get Taran, Weber, and Kodo. We meet the Thals.
Yes.
One of them's a jerk. Which one is that? That is
Vader.
Weber. Yeah, he was a surly character.
Real unfriendly SOB. But he had his own plans for things that need to go on. Anyway, so you got that. That's when we find out that the lead guy now, he was just happened to be the highest ranking member. But luckily, he's fully qualified in space medicine, so that's cool.
Like, what is
so
the difference
ridiculous.
between space medicine and regular medicine? Like, that's what.
Well,
is it an extra class? Or?
You find that out whenever you. Yeah, there's a whole subunit there that you have to take. This is when we find out that there's invisible beings on the planet.
Yes.
So they go out because there's a patrol. They leave Joe behind. Mm-hmm. She locks herself in, and we have this whole green screen of just I don't know why it needed to be like a heavy breathing.
It was very uncomfortable.
It was very making a prank phone call. I can
the
see
whole
the curtains.
Invisibility part of it is really not that important. Like
except that's the thing the Daleks
that's the thing the Daleks want,
but
it's not an element that becomes used or like
no, because they completely counteract it by turning them into Grimace.
Right,
later,
they just put a blanket over them and it's problem solved. It's just
it was very.
It
strange.
felt very strange. Yeah. It was like, oh my god, an invisible Dalek! Like all of a sudden at the end there was going to be an attack of invisible Dalek. Like that never.
We do not.
Never happens.
It does not happen. I did look this up because I did a little bit of research. Remember, Joe says like the doctor. I'm backtracking a little bit, but doctor's in a comatose state, but he's dealt with this once before and came out of it with a quick change in temperature or something.
And that was
I didn't
when
know
he
what
turned
the heck
into
she was
Pertwee?
talking about. That was from the Damons when they excavate some. I think this is the one where they excavate like that. There's a location in England, Devil's Hump. And they have the news crew there.
Oh,
and they go
yes. Now I'm with
that's
you.
the one. I think he freezes there until the demon materializes. Anyway, just
a lot of hot and cold elements in this, right? So the doctor's cold, and then the Daleks have to be kept on ice, or they're going to start to move around. So there's a lot of volcanoes of ice, which we'll get to. But
volcanoes of ice, and then hot rocks,
running hot
rocks. Anyway, so we got Joe going around. She does get sprayed by one of the plants on her hand.
She does. She gets the old hand.
So she's infected. I was wondering. I didn't see anything about this, but like the spray that goes all over the TARDIS hardens into this thing that's chipping off, and to me it looks like plumbing supply that spray foam that
we do get
some hardens.
Some spray is used later as well.
Well, that's what it looks like. It's like hardens on there, and they're really scraping it off of there. I just wonder. I don't know this. I just wonder: is that the actual TARDIS prop, or did they use a separate front for that? Because
I would hope so. So
it
they don't
really
damage
looks like
it. We don't want to damage our TARDIS, Dan.
Yeah, I was just a little worried about that. I don't know if anyone knows the answer to it. Perhaps we'll never know. Anyway, the Doctor reveals to his Thal friends that have now come back to save him. They rescue him from suffocating inside his own TARDIS.
I like that bit because I always like when he's like a legend and they're connecting all that stuff and they don't even think Earth is real. Yeah. And then I couldn't remember. I know we did it. Like I remember we did the Daleks. Mm-hmm. So Hartnell, right? Was on Skaro. But I don't remember. Every time I think about the Thals, I think about Genesis of the Daleks, and that. So it's like even now, like in the timeline of that, Davros has already created the Daleks, right? So the Daleks are on Skaro fighting the Thals currently.
No, currently at that moment that we're seeing. Yeah. No, because that was He says that he's from legend because it was hundreds of years ago.
Right. So hundreds of years ago was Hartnell, and that took place after Tom Baker, right? So Tom Baker, Genesis of the Daleks, there are no Daleks. We build the Daleks. Then Hartnell is fighting them, whatever. Then hundreds of years go by, and the Thals are... Like, because that's the thing, they talk about going back to Skaro, but every time we see Skaro, it's like a wasteland of... So I guess there's some other war in which all the Thals are wiped out?
Could be. Okay. Yeah, I guess seemingly. I don't know. Seems like it.
It's probably clear. It's probably an episode we reviewed, but I can't remember.
Yeah. I mean, hey, like we said, 7 full years going to our 8th and doing everything out of order makes it kind of hard to remember what's what. But anyway, we do know that this is the ongoing war between the Thals and the Daleks here. So anyway, so we got that.
They become allies pretty quickly to the Doctor and the Thals, and I like that they didn't spend too much time sort of back in, like, I am the guy from the legend. Like, it just took like a couple of
we got that. We got the Doctor immediately saving.
We're boys.
The Doctor saves one of the Thal guys from being like wrapped up by a jungle vine. So like they get trust pretty much right away, which is great. They find an invisible Dalek and spray paint it black, and I thought that was a really good look.
When he's like, try this out, hit the control at the top, and they're like literally just have spray paint.
It's just spray paint. It's just literally spray paint. It was so silly.
And that part was really silly too, because that's when you learn that what the heck did the Dalek have? Like sun disease or like shiny happy people? What was it?
It was something.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Wave sickness.
Light sickness or
light wave sickness, I think.
Light wave sickness. That was it. It was
something like that.
It was something very cool. Great band too, Light Wave Sickness.
Yeah, the second album was even better than the first, which is great.
But that was silly. The spray on to reveal, but what are you gonna do?
But it did look. It was cool. It would have been, like you said, even better had we not.
Yeah, if you didn't know, and then
it would have been like, oh no,
of course.
Really cool. Anyway, that's fine. Jo's in peril. Her the fungus on her hand is spreading up her arm.
Well, she's gotten rescued already, right? You talked about that. The invisible, whatever comes and takes her out, and then that whole scene with the ship blowing up, and that was, I kind of like that too, like where the Doctor thinks that she's been killed and she's not killed.
He does think that she's been killed, but he also is he just doing that whole stiff upper lip thing? Because he doesn't.
Yeah, he's not too like
real upset by it.
Yeah, he's like sort of sad, but also kind of moving on. Like I have certain members of my family that are like that, I think, and it's like, okay, I guess that's just kind of how he is. I'll just have to use other people,
We'll process this emotion later. Anyway, so we got that. Jo gets saved by one of the remaining Spiridon Invisibilia guys. They were kind of all wiped out and enslaved by the Daleks. He saves her by pouring Hershey's milk chocolate sauce on her arm to save. It was a very strange thing. Like, okay, that's
and the Doctor got that too. Did we say that? Like, you first realize that the stuff will kill you when the Doctor gets rescued in the very beginning.
But he just gets a spray.
He gets
from
like
the
a
space
light
medicine
mist,
doctor.
And she gets the chocolate sauce
because I guess chocolate sauce.
It's she's becoming a clicker at that point.
Right. Yes.
She's leveled up.
So she's
Wesker's that guy's name, right? The kindly Spiridon or whatever.
Yes, with the heavy breathing for some reason. Yeah. So then Weber's gonna try to commit mutiny against the commander, but then he's forgiven like immediately. It's totally fine. Because they think there's like 12 Daleks on the planet, but it turns out that there's like 10,000.
There's a lot more, and we don't find that out right until that woman comes, the ex-girlfriend or current girlfriend.
Yeah, we hear that's at the end of episode 2. We hear,
and then she's like, "Hey, no, there's more." But how does she know and they don't know? They're literally on the planet. You feel like they would have cracked it and sent the information back home.
I don't know.
But somehow back home knew. They get the news. The Daleks probably have a newsletter.
News you can use.
They put out and they can keep up with that. You get
Cool.
Rebic and Latop, and that's when you get that guy that's like aggressively into Joe.
Yeah, really, just as from first handshake, he was smitten, and that did not bode well for what I thought was going to happen at the end, because I forgot.
No, and even like their interactions are very strange. Like when this goes way back. Now we're getting all the way to the end, but when she's like. Sees the ship and she's like trying to give him hope and he's like shutting her down. But then he's like, but there is something I hopeful for, and they have that weird moment and you're like, it just feels real uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was
but I guess a lot of women could probably relate to that particular you get that text from someone you thought you were just friends with and now it's weird.
Hey, why don't you smile more? You look so pretty. Okay, so that happens. They decide to what are they going to do? They're going to try. Is this when they?
What happens?
This is when we find out that the Spiridons have to wear these big purple furs that keep them warm.
Yeah, they look like Grimace.
Even though it's only cold at night or inside those tunnels, but they still.
Well, right. Yeah, we didn't talk about as we talked about hot and cold being a whole thing. The planet itself, it gets very hot and very cold.
Yes.
Like there's lots of time spent talking about hot and cold elements.
So at night, I guess we'll get there. We'll come back to where they have to go at night because that was just so fun. Anyway, so whatever.
The plane of stones. Is that what you're talking about? The plane of stones scene where they dunk all those guys?
That's the next episode. What we have now, though, we have the hot air balloon scene.
Yes.
So the Doctor and some Thals need to escape. They infiltrated the city. They see what's going on there. They find out there's a whole chamber full of miniature Daleks. And when I say miniature Daleks, I mean they were actually commercially available toys.
Little toys, yes, which looked great. I wished I had them, like all over.
Yeah, I would have had those.
They were very cool looking.
But they put those, did the huge special effects to make them look real. So they find those. They got to get out of Dodge real quick. The only way is up Willy Wonka's chimney. They have some plastic. The hot air lifts them up. The thing. Okay, great. Cool, let's do something fun, totally different. They say that because they've gone down so many levels, the chimney's like miles tall.
Yeah.
It's going to take them forever to get out of there. Except then when the Dalek shoots up there with the anti-gravity pad and they knock it on the head with a rock, it falls about 2 stories to the ground and crashes. There's just some inconsistencies that I want my script editor and my production crew to be talking to each other. Anyway, so you had that. This is where we find out that Rebek shouldn't have shown up because the guy might screw up and that would be all her fault.
Yeah. Why did you come
really
here?
Made me mad.
Well, because it is, and that's also the same thing that other guy kind of repeats, that it's like a suicide mission and you can't have anything to lose. And now it's her fault because she clearly cares for her.
It's just ridiculous.
You know, whatever.
Then the Doctor says to Joe, hey, maybe you ought to go talk to her. Maybe she needs a female shoulder to cry on.
Yeah.
It's just, Jesus Christ. It was just okay. Anyway, but she's game. She goes, helps her. Anyway, so they find out that the jungle temperature drops dramatically overnight, and they need to go to the Plane of Stones, where the
one
sun
thing
has
before we
warmed
get
them.
to the Plane of Stones, right?
Oh,
so the Dalek army that's being refrigerated, right?
Yeah.
Why?
Just to
because the Daleks are intentionally refrigerating them, right? Because there's some talk about blowing up the refrigeration unit and how bad that
keeping
would be.
them on cold storage.
Well, why not just have all of them running? I guess it's a resource thing because
well, I guess we don't know
feels
how
like
long
they
they've
get
been
stuff
there.
done faster with all 10,000 of them just running the planet. But anyway,
yeah. So they thought that they would have to blow up the refrigeration unit to thwart the Daleks, but actually, if they did that, that would activate their plan. So
yes,
That was weird.
So yes, go on. So we're talking
Okay, so we
about
go to the Planet of Stones. The only thing that's important here is they get surrounded by the multiple shots of glowing eyes in the darkness. Yes. Was just so silly.
Yeah.
It was
the Plane of Stones, the campfire scene. Yes.
Oh my God! So they shoot to scare away the creatures, but they run out of charge, and the doctor's waving fire at them, and it's just the silliest thing. They have the same sound effect of them coming back, and it was just really, it was great, really campy in a way that I don't necessarily think was intended, but in a way that I really appreciate. So that's fun. Eric, explain to me, episode 5, we find out more of the Daleks' ultimate plan. Not only do they want to steal the invisibility technology from the Spiridons.
That's true.
They have this bacteria bomb
Yeah,
that will blow up
kill all plant
and
life.
kill everything on the planet.
All living tissue, I guess.
Why? Why do they need to destroy the planet?
the whatever, the plant life is so aggressive. If you could get that weapon and maximize its potential, you could take over any number of planets. It's like no.
There's no way that was their thinking. Well, first of all, sure. I'm glad you gave me an explanation because they sure as hell don't.
Sure, they don't. But
They're
it's
just
a great weapon.
Let's just blow up the planet. I don't understand that.
I don't know. I think that they're just looking at it as another weapon of mass destruction. They've got the invisibility ability, and now they have a way of killing all, the super bacteria. But then they get stuck in that. They get the bacteria or whatever.
Stuck in that room.
Not the bacteria. Is it bacteria? What is it? It's whatever.
Yes.
The poison cloud or whatever that when that one guy opens it.
Yep.
And then they're trapped in there because they can't let it out. But it doesn't really hurt the Daleks.
They had already been inoculated, but they couldn't open the door because it would have let the bacteria out.
I guess because they just went through their air. Because I'm thinking they're in a travel machine, so aren't they no. insulated from?
Remember, those two Daleks were maybe the only two that had already been inoculated.
Yeah, they had
the ray that was on
the
them.
second booster shot.
Yes, they had the covalent booster, but they were trying to get all the Daleks and their slave Spiridons there to get inoculated with that light ray first. But only they had, so they're.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is weren't they protected from an airborne?
They were. That's why that Dalek freaks out. They get trapped in there. The bacteria goes off. That Spiridon dies, but those two Daleks are stuck in there, and they have to seal it off because if they open the door, the bacteria will get out to uninoculated Spiridons and Daleks, and that Dalek freaks out. It's like, we're going to be stuck in here forever, because he's not going to die from it. He's just going to get stuck there.
He'll be there forever. I get that.
He saw his own mortality.
I was just wondering why did the Daleks need to get inoculated because they're protected by a metal casing, but it doesn't matter because I guess they're breathing it in or whatever. The little fella inside.
Their little squishy hearts.
But yes, that is like an element that then gets locked into that room.
Yes.
That isn't. It's over at that point.
That part's done.
There's no
if
more.
They had, not to beat this dead Dalek.
And then what happens if somebody accidentally opens that door?
They'll just put caution tape on the door.
Fair enough.
Put a little caution tape. That'll be fine. Not to beat the dead Dalek too much, but if they had just said this bacteria bomb to kill all the Spiridons so no one else gets their invisibility technology, that would have been fine. Just say it. Just say it once.
Okay.
Because otherwise it's just mustache twirling. And we already know the Daleks are evil. Just give us a anyway, it's fine. Eric, what I'm trying to say is
then there's a lot of explosives being taken and stolen. We can skip that part. Joe ends up with the explosives.
Little back and forth there. Joe gets a concussion.
And the explosives are really weird looking. It's just a weird model.
Like a carry along tape recorder.
Yes.
It was a little
Fisher Price thing, and you put your earphones on, and it tells you when to move to turn the page of the book.
Oh, I like those.
Beep, and then they would turn it. And I like the. It reminded me of the film Alien, with that mist with all the eggs when the doctor drops that tape recorder bomb down, and he's got to go down there and reach down there, and they're all sort of
so they're
hanging
gonna,
around.
The Dalek Supreme arrives. Is yep.
I like the Dalek Supreme.
Everything looks good. Yeah.
I thought I like the idea of a high council, and there is, even though it goes against sort of they're all the same. I do like when there's a little bit of individuality.
Yep. Apparently, that Dalek prop came from the Cushing movie. And was given to Terry Nation as a gift.
Oh, yeah.
So he loaned it to them.
That's right.
Because that's why it looks significantly different than the other Daleks as well. That's what I read. Internet can never lie.
Cool. And
so
I liked him or her.
So they got
or
that. The idea is like, okay, Dalek Supreme's there. We're ready to start our plan. So let's thaw out all of the other Daleks. They turn off the refrigeration. So the Doctor has to come up with a plan to like, how are we going to stop them? So they're going to use that explosive to collapse the cave wall and cause all the ice volcano to fill up.
Yes. And then they talk about the ice volcano, which is just such a strange concept, and they refer to it as like molten ice and like So there once again, there's
molten
like these
ice. If you like Mountain Dew,
there you go. You're drinking the ice in the woods out of a can, natural ice. Remember that, guys?
Yeah.
Again,
delicious.
more like hot and cold. There's so much of that like carried through the entire story.
So we got that, and it was like this,
which doesn't work at first, and then all of a sudden it works. Like you get that moment,
and it can get like ultra cold, but not actually hardened. So that then they have to like, was this before or after they blow up the thing and it fills the chamber with it? I guess before then they had taken the Daleks on a merry chase into these bubbling pools of it as well.
They push them into the pool. We forgot, but they all attack.
And they just get like partially submerged, and apparently this is what I wanted to ask you. Okay, so they're giving merry chase through the planet, and blah, blah, blah. They find him into the pool, they push him in, and the Thals go in there. First of all, the Thals go in, and like the sub-zero freezing, whatever, it doesn't bother them. I guess their spacesuits are really, really good. So
very insulated.
Props
got a
for
double level. Plus, they're all very drunk.
So they're going to feel it later, but right now, they're fine. So they open up one of the Daleks because they're going to use that as a disguise.
Yeah, they're going to
let someone go right around.
Yep.
You hear it. Am I wrong? One of the Thals opens it up and looks inside. We cut away as he's like reaching into it. We cut away to like the rest, and you hear like a sound. Like it was. Did he?
I don't remember that, but
because they have to empty it out so someone can be in there. But they don't show it. And it sounded like he pulled one of the Dalek mutants out and threw it out like shucking an oyster.
Like a bad weekend.
It sounded very obvious to me that was what was happening. I didn't know if you noticed that, but like they didn't show it on screen. We hadn't seen one of the mutants being decanned like that before. Anyway, it was kind of weird and creepy.
And we get that whole where they go in undercover with the two
literally undercovers
blankets.
I like that there was
like the easiest like. They see his foot, like that whole scene. Yes. The Dalek sees his tennis shoe. Was like that could have just happened anyway on this show, but it was just that was probably like, come on, the Daleks don't feel very threatening in this story, and even at the moment when they're fighting them, they seem to overpower the Daleks. That's why I'm thinking like they got 10,000 of these things. You could use 10 more.
Activate some more,
or 20 more, like. They're like easily moving the stalks around and throwing them in
throwing the blanket over
them. They don't feel like much of a threat.
No, I mean,
a lot of people died. I mean, there is a body count at some point, but they don't feel all that threatening.
Apparently, in the original version of the script that Terry Nation wrote, the Thals all die at the end of the 5th episode.
I had read that too,
which is great. It's better than I take that criticism as well. Maybe there's a little bit too much. Too much of the death in the body counts. Anyway,
I like the Dalek killing the Dalek in a very Darth Vader-like scene for failing at his job.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
That Dalek Supreme's got he takes no guff. All right, so then we get to the end. Let's just
jump to the end. Joe and this guy. Let's just talk about Joe and this fella.
What's his name? Laptop.
And it's hard to tell, like, it seems
I thought it was gonna happen.
Way that she's portraying the character, I can't tell. Sometimes I feel like she is interested in him.
Yeah.
And then other times she's just homesick, too. So,
right.
But, I mean, you're supposed to think, I feel like you're supposed to walk away thinking she debated it and maybe she was going to stay.
Yeah, I think
right?
so too.
Which makes it very odd that all of a sudden the next episode we just do the Green Death. She instantly ends up with another guy and then leaves the show to hang out with the professor. So it's like, I don't know, to be back to back, then it makes her feel like I don't know. It was
They were
odd
really
to have this story
her exit
right next to that story and have them together.
Yeah, especially when she says, well, does the Green Death is the next story. That's when she leaves.
Yeah, that's the one with she ends up with the professor, who's like the cool hip.
So she's
hip
been
professor.
saying she didn't go with him with Laptop, seemingly because, well, first of all, she just met the guy, and she's more homesick than anything else. So then in Green Death, they are back in 20th century in Wales. Yeah. So like, okay, it does make sense. So now she gets the best of all worlds. Just find some other random guy that she'll meet.
And I like how the guy takes it. Like, you know, he clearly is going to become an incel at that point and open the door and let out all of the bacteria. But like that whole scene was weird and the rejection was weird, and I don't know. I could have done without that plot point. But, you know, that's like, you know, they always do that kind of thing. There's some kind of romantic interest for all of the companions.
That's the only way they can leave. Got like a Romana situation going on. Yeah, I don't know. Barbara and Ian, we got a romance of sorts leaving. Anyway, yeah, Eric, as we always do, rank this one 0 to 10 Daleks. We never do this. But, I mean, overall, you liked it, right? It was
6.5 or 7 Daleks.
Huh, okay. Yeah.
Right? Not quite an 8, but I enjoyed my time here. I was like, I really like Jo, and she's moved up my ranks for companions. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's like a good era. I love the 70s. I love this kind of science fiction, so it checked all my boxes.
Yeah. I would give this one, let's say 6 Adrics.
Okay. 6 Adrics makes sense, and 1 exploding Adric.
What?
It's a little something extra.
That still
Speaking
smells like
of
a ham
exploding
sandwich.
Adrics, somebody had tweeted out, and then I retweeted it, and I think I sent it to you. The Andor, like the young boy that I forget the name of the planet that they're on. But yeah, the costume design is very reminiscent of Adric's look. So look out for the old Doctor Who show Twitter account as we've retweeted it. If we haven't, Dan's going to retweet it right now.
Is he?
Yep.
I guess
that's because I don't have access to it, Dan. I would do these things if I could.
I should just have given you access and saved all this time. Fantastic, Eric.
Good enough Dalek story, right? I mean, it's no Genesis of the Daleks.
No,
I get a little confused. Oh, I also liked the scene with Pertwee and the new Thal leader where he's like, hey, when you go back, don't romanticize war.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He does all that stuff and talk about the guys and the women that died and all of this stuff. That's great. And then when you know the full story, I guess the Thals are completely wiped out. So maybe he should have talked up war and they wouldn't have got their butts kicked.
So you're saying it's the Doctor's fault?
It's kind of the Doctor's fault. No, I don't. Yeah. I can't. I gotta look that up and figure out, like, okay, what happens to the Thals? Right? Every time we go to Skaro, we hear about Skaro. It's as if it's just a whole planet of Daleks.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, which must be the case.
We've obviously know the story of Genesis of Daleks, but what happens? There must be another war that happens. Right. And I'm sure it takes place in one of these stories. Possibly.
Everyone listening to this knows the answer except for us.
Because the disco people come too, right? The Daleks versus the disco people. Remember they're on roller skates?
Yep.
What are they called?
The Mondavian...
Montessori's.
Mandelbrats.
The Montessori's. They started the school,
Mandibles. Modoc.
The Modocs.
Yeah.
No, it's not the Modocs.
No, it's not the Modocs.
That's the giant head creature with the way he's got arms and legs. He's got a big head. Jack Kirby created Modoc. R.I.P.
You want to talk about Modoc a little bit?
R.I.P. the King.
Okay.
All right, we're done. I think we're done with Planet of the Daleks.
We did have some emails that we hadn't read.
Oh, good.
Let me go in reverse
the polarity.
John Delves says to us, Dan and Eric, Planet of the Daleks in color. Dan and Eric, this episode of Doctor Who is very close to my heart, as this was the story my brother and I saw in color. I guess this is maybe the first story they saw in color.
Oh,
well, the second half of episode 6, to be precise. The first thing we saw was the movie Gold Dalek coming out of the spaceship. The Doctor meeting the Thaws was great and tied the story nicely to Dead Planet. Jo was awesome in this episode, leaving the safety of the TARDIS to help get help for the Frosty Doctor. Also loved the Dalek Army scene in the ice caves. They were 100%. They were 100 Mattel toys you could buy anywhere, but looked pretty effective. The anti-grav disc chase tied to TV 21 comic strips of the 60s. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. I was also wondering, like, the Daleks were able to get around on a lot more varied terrain than previously.
Yeah, they fly in this one too, right? Don't they make a point of floating?
Well, that's the anti-gravity thing.
Yeah.
But we're just going through the jungle. I was picturing in my head, like, the studio set must have had, like, very clear paths for them to go. But you see one point, they're actually going over some more rough terrains. They must have put ATV tires on them. So they're all-terrain Daleks in this one. Going back to the email, all Who stories were in black and white before then. John Pertwee was my doctor, and I loved the Unit Family Adventures most. Interesting. I guess, it really depends on when you come into it, but that's great. Thank you both for your entertaining reviews of every show. What a bloody marathon. We have left a 5-star testimonial to your podcast on Apple. You deserve it.
Thank
go
you.
Check that one out.
That's so nice of you.
Happy times and places. John from Australia. Thank you so much,
John.
Really
and
appreciate
yes,
that.
I don't have a way of seeing those reviews from Australia, but we'll have to find them at some point.
Yeah.
Any other?
Yeah, we do. We have a couple. Let's
feedbacks.
Christops Paddock, our old friend Christops, says to us, Eric and Dan, as it comes to an end, it's hard to think what I'll do every 3 weeks when I need to hear some people ramble about Sandman, Dune, Eric's traumatic childhood, or whatever else comes up when not talking about Doctor Who. I hope you'll keep us entertained with something, but if you finally want to escape from the basement and feel the sun in your face, I understand that too. It's been real, guys. Thanks for 7 long years.
Oh, thank you. It's been
thank you very much.
It's been great.
It has been
It's going to be sad when it's over. I've said that before. I'm going to be sad. It's kept us friendly. Not that we wouldn't be friendly, but I get to talk to you every 3 weeks. You know,
a reason for the season.
It is the reason for the season.
We'll keep y'all posted. Let's see. Michael sends an email. This is from January, but it was a busy time. Says to us, I'm writing to draw your attention to this new collection on 1970s television survival TV, edited by Rodney Marshall, which includes a number of articles on Doctor Who. I have contributed an article on Malcolm Hulke's serials for Doctor Who and would be delighted to talk about it. Well, that is very cool.
Say that again, because I heard a lot of words, but I didn't understand any of it. But I'm also very tired.
I might try
Survival TV is the name of a magazine?
Yeah, I'm going to try putting this
or
back
like a website or something
into English instead of the way that I read it, which was someone.
Yeah, we can share a link to that if it's like a.
Okay, I am writing to draw your attention to this new collection on 1970s television. So it's a collection. I see a link on Amazon. It's a book kind of collection.
Yes.
Talking about 1970s television. The title of it is called Survival TV, edited by Rodney Marshall.
Gotcha.
And there's a number of articles about Doctor Who. Writer here, Michael, says that he's contributed an article about Malcolm Hulke's serials for Doctor Who, which we'd be delighted to talk about. And there is a link, so we will retweet that link and also put a link on the show page for that. Sorry we didn't have a chance to kind of talk with you about that, but that's a very interesting thing that I'm sure listeners here would be
you would definitely check it out. It looks Survival TV, 1970s Britain and the television series.
Yeah.
Published on January 8th, 2023. So congratulations on being part of that book.
That's really cool.
That is awesome.
So we got that. And let's see. JB says in an email, hey, Eric and Dan, I sent an email about a month ago about remaining episodes of Doctor Who that you haven't seen.
Where is it, Dan? I don't have the emails either.
It wasn't mentioned on the last show.
Let's mention it.
And you asked again for more information. This is a travesty. Let me go back.
This is why, because they're like listening and then they keep hearing me complain, like, no one's telling me what's the review.
Yeah.
And meanwhile,
and
this
like,
person
hey,
has put the time in. I blame Dan because I don't have access. Somehow I lost access to the email and I don't have access to the Twitter account. I'm a mess.
I'm slowly trying to get Eric off of this show. But
I've been removed.
Folks. Okay, here's one. Oh boy, this is quite an email. So, sorry, JB, that we somehow overlooked this from November.
Okay, what do we got?
Listening to their shows for just over a year now. You're the only classic Doctor Who podcast that I really enjoy, bar one other. But they only did John Pertwee episodes.
That's
Woof.
a very specific.
That is very specific. I've since listened to all of your episodes and appreciated the extra Sandman content. Someone did, as suddenly having to wait 3 weeks for an episode was a bit of a shock after binging your entire podcast. Although doing a show each week does seem to be tiring. Yes, it was not great. And thank you for the 5-star review that you left here that you said, JB. Thank you so much.
All right, cool. So what are these episodes?
I'm writing because I'm a big fan of the first 2 Doctors and know all the stories very well, so I thought I could help you advise some of that you're missing and possibly add, assuming that the UK and US BritBox have the same content, which is never
that may be the issue.
I also really like you guys would like you to do more episodes. So there's an ulterior motive. There was a bit of a Twitter thread back and forth with a couple of our listeners about how we should keep the show going. And hey, guys, if you want to take over the mantle. Anyway, let's see. Here's a few. I feel like we have done it. Wheel in Space.
We did
you
that
have
one.
Wheel in Space in your list. I'd love for you to review it.
We just did Wheel in Space.
Okay,
that was
right.
the last.
Okay,
week.
you had. So this is way back. Sorry.
Okay.
10th Planet is William Hartnell's story, and it's only missing 1 episode, but it's animated and it's on BritBox season 4. 10th Planet. So this is the one that.
Okay.
Introduces the Mondavians. This is, I guess, maybe is my guess.
All right, 10th Planet.
Anyway.
I see. I'm writing this down. Yes, 10th Planet.
Are we actually thinking of extending our show? Anyway,
yeah,
okay.
We'll talk about it, Dan.
Moonbase is an early Troughton story. 2 of the 4 episodes are missing, but they are animated and on BritBox season 4. Interesting. Put a little asterisk of animated there. The animated ones aren't bad.
No, and they said, I think it was a he. They said 10th Planet is animated too.
One episode is missing but animated. Moonbase missing 2 but animated. This one I always want to pronounce the Mascara Terror, but it's the Macra Terror. Early Patrick Troughton story. All episodes are missing, but all are animated on BritBox season 4. Assuming it's the same as US.
I'm a little nervous about that one.
Yep. The Faceless Ones. I just like the name of this one. Another Patrick Troughton story. 4 of the 6 episodes are missing, but all 4 have been animated on BritBox. Interesting. Ice Warriors. Did we not do Ice Warriors?
We did Ice Warriors. I could have swore.
I think we did. Furries from the Deep or Fury from the Deep?
Hold on. Let me look up Ice Warriors.
Guys, we're doing this in real time because why not?
Wait, we didn't do Ice Warriors?
How did we not do it?
I could have
because
swore
some were missing.
We did it.
Maybe because they were missing. And we just were like, we're not
so
going to do it. So
how many are missing from the Ice Warriors?
We weren't. 2 were missing. At a particular time, we weren't using BritBox as our source. Yeah. So we may have come across it, wanted to do it, but were they missing, and we didn't have access to them. So it's possible we didn't. I still want to call it Furries from the Deep. Fury from the Deep is one of my favorite Troughton stories, but missing all episodes. All are animated.
Oh my god!
So that also does not sound appetizing. Underwater Menace, early Patrick Troughton, features the hammiest performances in all of Who. That is saying something. However, 2 of the 4 episodes are missing and have not been animated, but has the telesnaps. That one is immediately disqualified, hamminess or not. I'm going to keep kosher on that one. Summarizing thank you for all that feedback.
Thank you for supplying all those. And it sounds like it's essentially 10th Planet's Hartnell, but everything else is Troughton, right?
That's what it sounds like. Troughton with missing and recovered or animated versions. Let's see. I'd love for you to do all these episodes. Troughton's one of my favorite Doctors. Feel a lot of his best stuff is missing, but 10th Planet, Moonbase, and Ice Warriors probably fit the bill for having the least missing and also animated. You are right. You know the criteria. These are all the episodes in BritBox you haven't reviewed. Hartnell's Reign of Terror, Galaxy 4, and Troughton's Abominable Snowmen and Evil of the Daleks have also had missing episodes animated but not available. We did Abominable Snowmen, maybe? I feel like.
I
anyway.
don't know.
For all the missing episodes, I really recommend audio versions, not for your show, but just listening. I'd also recommend the Dalek Master Plan. It's a 13-episode epic, but is never or hardly ever boring and one of Hartnell's best and possibly the best Dalek story out there. All but 2 episodes are missing, though. Unfortunately, we're not going to be doing that. Audio versions just for people to listen to sounds like a great idea, but not necessarily for this show. I hope this helps making your decision. Thank you for all of that. P.S. I finally got around to watching Fire Walk with Me.
Oh, okay. Now,
and I'm halfway through Twin Peaks: The Return, and have been enjoying your mini Twin Peaks reviews I occasionally hear as I re-listen to your old Peter Davison days.
Nice.
That's fantastic.
Good on you.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah, maybe we just do a Twin Peaks podcast. You don't know what's going to happen.
Timeless. It's timeless. That'll never
timeless.
go away.
Well, I'm glad you're
I still
enjoying
have
Fire Walk with Me and The Return.
I would also recommend it because dear reader, dear writer here, JB, you seem to be a completionist who likes all the different media. They're the 2 books that came out after The Return that give like a whole bunch of the more history. It was all David Frost stuff, so it wasn't really Lynch. It was all
Mark
history around
Frost,
it.
not David Frost. Come on.
Sorry.
That's a whole different thing, isn't
Mark
it?
Lynch and David Frost.
Mark Lynch, David Frost. Yes, it is it's not
but it's
considered
great.
canon either.
But it's really, really, really
But
good.
you have
so there's that one.
Secret History of Twin Peaks and
Yep. What's the second one?
What's the other one called? They're right here.
I have it, but I actually haven't read it yet.
Oh, I've read both of them.
But I would recommend them for you who are getting into the Twin Peaksiness of it all. Really,
the
really
final
stuff.
dossier.
There you go. And I love actually what's really interesting if you read it now. There's a lot of stuff about UFOs, unidentified
lot of
aerial
UFO
phenomena in those books, and it's very timely now, folks.
Well, while we're recommending stuff from that world, I would also say read the Diary of Laura Palmer.
Yeah.
Written by David Lynch's daughter. It's very sad and good.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yep.
Okay. We've done it.
We did it.
So, folks, we've got some things to chew on. I'm going to actually use Twitter this week. Eric, why don't we, you and I talk. We'll figure out the episodes that we're most interested in. We'll vet them to make sure they are available on BritBox in some form, not telesnaps, but animated and available in the U.S. From there, maybe we'll put a list on the old Twitter machines, maybe on Mastodon, maybe I'll skywrite something. We'll send you all handwritten letters.
I like it.
And you guys can let us know which ones you think are very important for us
Are
to cover
doable.
before we
Yeah.
finish it off with the second Cushing movie instead. All right?
Okay.
Sound good?
Sounds good.
We're never done with this.
We're done.
We're never ending.
We got to get out. I got to
right.
eat lunch.
Bye, Eric.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Bye, all. Thank you.
On. Peace.
That's not me. I go where I please. I walk through walls. I float down the living. I'm not here. This isn't happening.